More consultation in future, but insisted it's the role of voters, not Liberal MPs, to hire and fire a Prime Minister.
Tony Abbott's entrance for the crucial National Press Club appearance brought to mind the downward spiral of his opinion poll ratings. Everyone knew his survival as Prime Minister could depend on whether the speech quietened leadership talk in the Liberal Party, running at full volume since Saturday's Queensland election shock. Joe Hockey, who would get the chop as Treasurer if Mr Abbott was replaced as PM, was there to cheer him on, along with Margie Abbott and a host of coalition heavies, including Liberal Director Brian Loughnane, though Mr Loughnane's wife, the PM's controversial Chief of Staff Peter Credlin, was a no-show. The speech itself was no Gettysburg Address, mostly a flat rehash of Abbott rhetoric. The centrepiece had already been leaked by Mr Abbott's office last week.
So that bigger parental leave scheme is off the table.
He finally dumped the gold-plated paid parental leave scheme. He'd called it a signature policy, which colleagues had told him from the start was unaffordable and cut across the budget strategy.
What's desirable is not always doable.
Money will be diverted to a families package focused on childcare. There was a partial back-down on another misguided captain's pick policy, the reintroduction of knighthoods and damehoods that saw an English duke knighted on Australia Day and made Mr Abbott a laughingstock.
I probably overdid it on awards.
In future, the titles will be granted by the Order of Australia Council, not the Prime Minister. Along with those admissions of error, Mr Abbott promised no GST rise without political consensus and new cabinet arrangements to ensure the views of backbenchers are heard. He said he'd listened and learned. But it was his response to questions rather than the speech itself that's more likely to give Liberal leadership agitators pause for thought. Those who believed there was a chance Mr Abbott might be persuaded to go quietly had better think again. He's the best person to lead the government, he said, and resigning doesn't cross his mind. Furthermore, in his view, once a leader is endorsed at an election, MPs have no right to make a change.
It's the people that hire, and frankly, it's the people that should fire.
Mr Abbott acknowledged that the government had been through a rough couple of months, but criticised backbenchers and ministers who'd spoken about problems to the media.
The last thing you want to do is to make your difficulties worse.
It was a test of character, he said.
Politicians pass the test when they do what is best for the long term, not when they give in to short-term fear.
A desperate speech from a politically drowning man aimed at pleasing his MPs.
As Mr Abbott left the press club, ministers rallied to praise his performance, including Foreign Minister Julie Bishop, regarded, along with Malcolm Turnbull, as a possible leadership alternative.
The speech he gave today outlined a very positive direction for us, a narrative for us to take to the next election.
I think it was a good occasion.
And Laurie joins me now from Canberra. Laurie, how has this speech gone down in the party room?
Well, it hasn't been received without criticism, Pete. The backbenchers I've spoken to point out that there's not really a lot of contrition. Mr Abbott dumped the extraordinarily expensive paid parental leave scheme that's been so damaging to the government's budget case, but he didn't admit that putting it up was a bad idea in the first place. Mr Abbott announced the scheme without consultation back then and said he decided it was better to ask forgiveness later than seek permission from the party first. Well, backbenchers haven't forgotten that. A Queensland backbencher, Andrew Laming, indicated his dissatisfaction with Mr Abbott's performance today. He issued a statement saying Mr Abbott has not gone far enough on knights and dames. Mr Laming announced that he'll move a private members' bill to abolish them from the honours system altogether, and that's a move with potential to cause the Prime Minister acute embarrassment. The leadership talk certainly won't stop, in my view. Just the same, I think Mr Abbott might have bought himself a bit of time. The truth is that most Liberal MPs really are worried about emulating the kind of leadership chaos that we saw under Labor. Mr Abbott effectively told the Liberal Party room today that there's going to be no easy way of getting rid of him. It was probably a timely reminder, Pete.
All right, Laurie, thank you. We're going to go to breaking news now. The bomb squad has been